society is how it treats its women and girls. The measure of any society is how it treats its women and girls.
We create
the smart, powerful, creative, accomplished young women.
We can fight.
I'm here because of you. I'm here because girls like you inspire me.
Buckle up, buttercups. It's another episode of Surly Voices here on WMNF Tampa 88.5. My name is Liz. I'm one of your hosts. My co-hosts are all here today. Donna, how are you?
Hello.
Well, or
I'm actually well. I'm doing a lot of things, but yeah, okay, yeah.
good. And Maria, how are you, Maria?
Sorry about that. I needed to unmute. I'm doing pretty good.
Awesome.
For a sweltery hot South Florida day.
Yes. It's the temperature is rising, and I didn't realize how humid it was until a few days ago, and I'm like, oh wow, yeah. Not Louisiana humid, but yeah, it's been very humid. So, what are we going to talk about today, ladies?
I do think that it's worth having a conversation about the spontaneous redistricting of the South.
I know.
I think that it would be worth a conversation to have about, the bubbling up of people wanting young men to, particularly, but young athletes to boycott the SEC. I think that's an interesting conversation to have as well. And then I guess, what are we going to do about it?
There you go. What are we going to do about it? Right.
I don't think it's enough to just talk about it. I think that we got to figure out what we're doing about it.
Right. Also, I'd like to throw into the hopper the National Day of Renewal that Trump is planning for the 17th. It's called Rededicate 250. National Jubilee of Prayer, Praise, and Thanksgiving. If this doesn't fly in the face of the First Amendment, I don't know what does. I mean, it's a movement geared toward centering the Christianity rather than any other religion. And so it's got a bunch of it's going to last 9 hours. Number one, who's got that kind of time? And the speakers will be Pete Hegseth of the Pulp Fiction quoting Bible, Marco Rubio and Mike Johnson, all the usual suspects. I'm sure J.D. Vance will be there as well. But it's like, all the money and, regardless of the First Amendment, all the money that's being spent on this, and then we're going to have WWE fights in the middle of the White House lawn. It's like, what? We are living out the whole plot of idiocracy, except Trump is not a young, healthy president. So it irks me to no end. And if ever there were a time for protesting, it would be on this particular day. I'm not encouraging anybody, but I'm saying that would be a really well-timed No Kings protest up on the mall. But anyway.
have a list of things here that I did some research on Tuesday. And it is why is Wall Street having a good old gay old time up there while everybody else is stress buying eggs?
Right.
Yeah, and gas, and don't forget gas. And I'd like to know why the AI boom and Middle East stability could actually be the same story.
Ooh.
Say
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
I'm going to, but stay with me. And the last thing is I wanted to know why Trump summit in China wasn't what they said. And what is it that both countries are talking around? Yeah. And the last thing I have is America might be entering its first fully vibes recession. You like that? Where the GDP says things are fine and the stock market is off the rails, but everybody's stressed out and because they're one dental emergency away from an Etsy business.
Right.
Okay. And so,
boy, can a toothache make you cranky.
yeah, we're going to call that debt and lavender. Okay. So I told you I was ready. So let's start with, can we start with the economy is great? And I mean, we also gotta drive by the empty seat down in Sheila Sherfless performance seat. We got to do a drive by on that one. Okay. Because a special election is going to fill that seat. I know Elijah Manley is itching.
Is the special election going to fill it?
It will be filled by a special election. Sean sent me that email this morning.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it was in Politico. Here, let me just pull it up right quick and I'll tell you. Here we have, let's see here. He would have sent it to.
You know she's running again for that seat, right?
You can't get any stranger. Stranger danger. Okay, so Debbie Wasserman. Oh, shoot. Okay, here's what Sean sent me. And this is, he copied and pasted out of Politico because it's a weird font. The redrawn 20th district is something of a fiasco, with 5 candidates vying to be the Democratic nominee in one state. One of the state's few remaining solidly blue and historically majority Black seats. And now, wait for it, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is moving over there.
Oh.
You know, the Black Caucus sent her a letter and said, don't even think about it, right?
She need a cease and desist letter. Yes. Yes. Liz, send this woman a letter. Okay. So the other thing, so what is happening in the what's happening? And then I'm gonna drop this in the middle of the floor. I'm gonna back up. Okay. So stocks are exploding upward because investors believe AI will create historic productivity gains. Meanwhile, regular people are watching gas prices, grocery, insurance, and rent quality quietly mutate into luxury goods. So it's a psychological split screen. Mm-hmm. Wall Street sees AI-driven growth. Normal people see, why does a sandwich cost $17?
Right.
And here's the literally 2 pieces of bread and the smallest amount of protein you can imagine, along with leafy vegetables and the thinnest slice of tomato, $17. People should be afraid, okay? Mm-hmm. And it's not from some posh restaurant uptown where they give you at least, for the $24 out the door, you could get maybe a thin slice of key lime pie. This is just a sandwich, no fries, no cookie, nothing. Okay.
Right.
Now, the underreported part is that the stock market is behaving like a future prediction machine and not a reflection of current public well-being.
It always has, though.
But you can see how it's a problem. It in no way reflects the economy. That's the problem. It's a bubble. And when the stock market bursts as a bubble, everybody pays. Everybody, including the people who are benefiting from it right now. I'm putting money into the stock market myself. Hundreds of dollars a week. So, but that's privilege, right?
Right.
Okay. So the stock market is increasingly behaving. Okay. So investors are essentially betting that AI will replace labor costs, productivity will surge, giant tech firms will consolidate power, and energy demand is going to skyrocket. And that's why markets keep rising despite war fears, inflation spikes, and consumer anxiety. So here's the translation for you. The market may be booming because investors expect fewer humans to matter economically. Read between the lines. So the economy is strong. While emotionally experiencing, I'm drowning. Historically, that creates volatility faster than a bad jobs report. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to leave that right there, and you guys can do what you want to do with it. But the next one is the Iran war and the AI boom are secretly the same story. Everyone's covering the Middle East like it's a military story. So I just kept reading and reading and reading and reading and reading. Okay. Everybody's covering like it's a tech story, but increasingly they're both energy stories. AI data centers require absurd amounts of electricity and water. Meanwhile, the geopolitical instability is being driven by oil shocks and inflation. So now we have an AI arms race, an energy crunch, a rising utility demand, and rising fuel costs. And listen, I found the connection between what Dump Duke is doing. What Dump Duke is doing in St. Pete is trying to stop the utility companies from going gangbusters on the bills that they're getting, right? 600, 800, 1200. And then there was the whole water fiasco, which the city handles. However, the utilities are being, I suspect, okay, I'm just going to say it, put it out there, that the rising cost of utilities is a bit of offletting of data centers onto regular citizens. Okay, will be the first time that an electric company has distributed costs to poorer people for people who use more service. So,
right.
Yeah, think about that for a moment. So the government's pretending these are separate conversations. I don't think they are. The future economy is a competition for electricity, semiconductor dominance, cooling systems. And then we're going to talk about what Europe did. Rare earth minerals, grid stability, and water access. Okay, this is not just about what you think about it. The giant AI future that everybody is celebrating has a physical footprint. And you know what? The other day at the University of Central Florida, an executive, Claudia Caulfield, she's a development executive with Tavistock. She got booed.
I saw that.
After telling graduating students that humanities and media students, that AI was the next. I saw the clip, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And that's what made me want to try to figure out how these things are connected. But the audience was made up of creative and media students who are terrified that AI is going to make their degrees obsolete, right? And then she followed it with praise for Jeff Bezos.
Oh my God.
Now, you know, UCF is a school that is known for having a robust student population of folks who will stand up for causes, right? That's where Maxwell Frost came from. And I feel like these schools are orchestrating that. But before I go full ADHD on this, okay? And I'm going to tell you about my dual ADHD autism diagnosis that I got. I spent 4 hours with a psychotherapist who told me, bro, your brain is like, whoa. Okay, but we knew that, though. Y'all knew that from listening to me. Anyway, the market, where were we? So let's see, I'm sorry, here I am. All right. So the AI giant, that future that everybody is celebrating, has massive data centers, massive cooling requirements, unbelievable energy demands. So listen to this one. One proposed AI data center in Utah requires more electricity than this. This one data center, I just had to say that again, requires more electricity than the entire state uses.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So we are heading straight long into a vortex where AI may compete directly with humans for affordable energy infrastructure. And nobody's processing that emotionally. So while the AI revolution sounds clean and digital, y'all, it's tied to geopolitics, water scarcity, global resource competition, power plants, right? And, you know, unfortunately, the cloud is made up of dirt, copper, concrete, electricity. So that's what we got. And then the last thing I wanted to go is that Trump and Xi, how do you say it? Xi.
Xi-
Didn't sound like
Xi-
rivals. They sounded like two CEOs managing global decline.
Yeah.
Okay. So China is a mess. And that's part the quiet, saying the quiet part out loud. And I don't know that I've said it to you before, but I had this conversation at the last Mensa meetup that I went to, that the US doesn't care about its people. It's tired of us. It doesn't need all of us. It wants to depopulate. That deregulated medicine ended scientific research, right? Now I'm off my script now, so somebody stop me.
She already told us she was diagnosed, so
Yeah.
somebody grab me up, gather me. Okay. And so this is a battle over AI infrastructure. This is what I told y'all about last year. Last thing I'll say, and then I'm gonna let y'all have this and do what you want with it. Last year we talked about the owners and controllers of global finance and capital, right?
Yes.
And I told you that nobody cares about the populations of people. Everybody's waiting. When we protest and we have no kings, that's a response that says, why don't you care about us? It's the Michael Jackson song, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But it is not penetrating the people who've always seen us as simply more sophisticated serfs than in the Middle Ages, okay?
Right.
But we are receiving the same treatment that serfs in the Middle Ages. These people their backs were literally used, like a nobleman would like literally ride on the backs of serfs.
Wow.
Okay? And that's how they think of you. And I'm going to say this, and I'm speaking to your listening out there. That's even if you are a retired, plush, well-financed middle manager or other type of executive or a high-level professional like a partner in your law firm, retired, and you're sitting over near the beaches and you're enjoying the spoils of your labor. They don't care about you either. So be careful with those votes.
The only people they care about is the ultra super wealthy like Musk and Thiel.
yeah, but none of these people, none of these people are making that $20 sandwich, right? Like the person making that $20 sandwich has to work 4 hours.
Right.
And get taxes taken out before they can't even eat it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Even with the 50% discount for being
Even with the 50% discount, because taxes are taken out of that $7.25 an hour.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah.
Right? Not for Elon Musk, not for Jeff Bezos. None of these people are getting taxes taken out of like their jet fuel costs and stuff like that.
The working class folks pay more in income taxes than Bezos and all his ilk because they own the system.
I'm still wondering why there's a cap on Social Security taxes. I genuinely wonder that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because, we talk about its solvency, but it's tied into that thing where the uber wealthy don't have to pay the same amount as anybody making $170,000 a year.
Right.
Right?
It's outrageous. Yeah.
My question about Social Security is, with inflation, they don't allow, like I had a couple people who were canvassing one of my programs, and they are like, the Social Security said they work too much, and now they want to come in and claw back some of that money.
Oh my gosh.
And so my question is, you can only make like $24,000 a year or something like that, right? So if you make more than that on your little side job or your little greeter job or whatever, seniors are trying to like not go too hard, whatever that job is, if you exceed a certain amount, then they come and they take back. But how is that money that you paid in all your life?
Right.
Right. And then they come back and they say, you can't do too well. However, the contrast is that if you have $80 million in the bank, you can still draw your Social Security. But if you're poor and you need to earn to supplement that Social Security, then they put a cap on you.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
That's unfair.
It is. Yeah.
And can I tell y'all something else about, I said I was going to come back and talk about Europe and how they're dealing with it. I saw something, this was in Northern Europe, one of the Scandinavian countries, I think, and they were putting data centers in like water. And the water was flowing around the data center to keep it cool.
Mm-hmm.
But the water was still usable water.
So
It didn't ruin the water.
It doesn't heat it up to the point where it destroys like fish and stuff.
It doesn't. No, like when the data centers use that water,
Mm-hmm.
that water becomes like the equivalent of radioactive.
Oh,
Right. So this doesn't destroy the water. Right. And so what they're doing, but United States is still saying AI is the future. Like it's some sort of intro to Star Wars.
they're pushing it so hard.
But
And
in Europe though, they're in Europe, they're treating them and regulating them like big industry. Like you would do a steel
As
mill
they
on
should.
foot.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't just unleash something like this with no regulation whatsoever, which sounds like what's happening. And
Yeah, it's not waiting
But you also have these industries, AI in particular, AWS, all those people, by the way, were on Air Force One to China.
Yeah.
Okay. And what they do not want and what they are paying goo gobs of money into our politics for is to not regulate AI. Not regulate AI on both sides, right? Like we're not regulating AI as and putting guardrails around its use, but we're also not putting any guardrails around the production, the construction of these data centers, right?
Have you heard what happened in Ireland?
what?
No.
So Amazon, Google, and the usual suspects, Microsoft, Meta, they all went to Ireland and they became like a hub. They became the European hub, right? But then the growth became so extreme that the data centers consumed over 20% of Ireland's total electricity. And some said they'll push that higher. So because Europe's their grids are smaller, older, and more dense, and they're also more politically constrained because in the United States, we place industry over everything. And I'm not saying that Europe isn't like that because it all started there, right? But Europe hit the wall sooner because of what happened in Ireland and Denmark too, and the Netherlands. This is why they use those. They're cooler climates. They have strong internet backbones. They're perceived as being politically stable, although this planet is roiling, and I don't know how long they're going to be able to stay out of the fray. They have renewable energy ambitions, of course, as any modern government should, and they have a favorable tax environment. But so they all flocked over there and almost ruined Ireland. So then the EU stepped back and jumped up and said, wait a minute. This is just like the Industrial Revolution, like Claudia was saying, but not in the way that she meant.
Right. It's not
Like
creating more jobs, it's taking jobs.
Taking jobs and also ruining the environment without apology, because we had that already. We shouldn't do it again.
Right. There's a message here from one of our listeners. It says, "Good morning, Surleys. How about these inland lagoons that followed Tampa Bay's water treatment crisis? They can't even handle sewage. Don't get me on the theme parks." So I never thought about how much energy there is coming out of theme parks, but yeah, that's got to be a huge thing too.
I want to know what it was. Tell me, but what about the inland lagoons?
After the water treatment crisis in Tampa.
Oh, you guys remember the sewage that got dumped into the water in St. Pete?
Mm-hmm. We're having boil notices and stuff like that. So,
Oof.
yeah.
Imagine drinking water with colonizing bacteria in it.
Right. Like the water's not toxic enough as it is.
But you know what bothers me about that is that they build these developments, right? and there's some up near Wesley Chapel in that area. So they build these like fake crystal lagoons, but then there's sewage in the waterways,
Yeah.
right? And then the brackish areas, like we have estuaries. I actually applied to be an estuary ambassador, and then I realized I'm never in Florida, right? But it's a program. I did get a nice little salad cup though from them, but they have a program where people's job it is to go around and educate just average citizens about the estuaries, so that they understand that these little waterways have special ecosystems and they have special flora and fauna in and around them, and that brackish water, that churls in those areas are often places where the water gets like cleaned. So brackish water is like some of it is salt water from the ocean, and some of it is fresh water from the river. And where they meet, there's just kind of like a cleanup of the water. And when we pollute them, they can't do their jobs to keep our water clean. But what's killing me about imported sand and crystal lagoons is that the crystal lagoons you can see to the bottom, but in our own waterways, starting like the Rio Grande. And no one's talking about that because there's just so much chaos everywhere.
I've never in my life felt so stressed from all the things that are going on. It's unbelievable.
Remember when they came on and they were like, the state of Tampa, Jane Castor's done such a great job. Yeah, but nobody talked about how Luis Vieira had to go, probably for his own purposes, and beg the city to release emergency funds when the pumps failed in West Tampa. And people's houses flooded and they lost big time because the pumps that were literally recently repaired or replaced. I worked on that last year on some stuff. And you know what? When the pumps failed and people were like, wait a minute, I'm not in a flood zone. And so come to find out the pumps failed and the water ended up in areas that it's not on our maps. And people actually lost their houses in Temple Terrace.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. No, I said West Tampa, but I meant Temple Terrace.
Yeah.
So in that area. And then they went and begged, it was only like $3 million, I think. And they got the money and they gave it to some of the families to help them meet the insurance companies where they were coming in at. But some of those folks didn't have flood insurance. So it was just a disaster. And guess what? We don't hear about that stuff.
Nope.
It was reported. It was in the news. But it didn't rise to the level of, teen takeover conversation.
Right. You're listening to Surly Voices on WMNF Tampa 88.5. Give us a call at 813-239-9663, or you can email to dj@wmnf.org. We are talking about AI and the consequences, good and bad. I can't see much good, but I'm sure there's some good. But yeah, the unintended consequences as well, such as huge energy draws to support the AI farms. Do you think that, all right, let's see. The AI is going to make certain jobs obsolete, but who are the little drones that go and run the AI machines? They might argue that is a job that's created, but who wants that job? Going around,
I think that
switches.
I think that the conjoining of yeah, I did that.
Careful
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah. I saw your head come up. I was like, whoops. It made my own heart race. All right. So Yeah, so that the era, the two eras, I'll try that again without drama. Okay. The advent of these two eras, right? The meeting of two eras. One is where, the little guy can't get ahead because the powers that be are not. It's just so many more words.
Yeah.
So many
You
more
could
words.
say screw the little guy. That
Yes, so screw the little guy era and the era of the rise of the robots, right? So
Yes.
it's almost like Planet of the Apes. We're the apes, y'all. Okay. And so the technology the takeover is imminent, but there is no political will to provide a landing place for the humans
right.
whose brains,
There doesn't have to be.
yeah.
There doesn't have to be. We are barely at 50% participation in our elections. And these are the consequences thereof. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Like when all of this stuff started happening around redistricting, right? And Donna, honestly, I thought about you, and I wanted to take this a part of this conversation offline because I remember us talking about Mississippi, right?
Yeah.
Mississippi, 40% of their electorate is Black,
Yeah.
African American, right?
Right.
They could run the table
Yeah.
in Mississippi. Mississippi was actually the first state to have a Black senator post-Civil War. The very first U.S. senator who of African descent came from the state of Mississippi, right? Mississippi has power that Mississippi hasn't realized. Working people have power that they have not realized, right? At what point, what is it that we need to do, right? To realize our own agency in this whole thing, right? I see some pushback. I don't see complete pushback because I do see areas where the status quo is who gets elected in the primary. We've seen these primaries, this whole spring, right? And I see some pushback. I see some fight back. What is it that we need to do to turn people on to their own agency in this, right? Like we are not completely helpless, right?
Right.
But what is it going to take? Because I fundamentally believe like this whole thing, like we haven't even talked about the aspect of the 14th Amendment. I don't think that this assault on the 14th Amendment stops with birthright citizenship. 14th Amendment is the foundation for all of our civil liberties, right?
Right.
It is where we lean into the amendment that has given rise to LGBTQIA rights, women's rights, certainly the civil rights movement, right?
Right.
Everything has rested for decades on leaning into the 14th Amendment. Them dismantling the 14th Amendment does not stop with birthright citizenship. It is just the beginning of disenfranchising all of us. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah. Well, I saw the Attorney General of Florida is going after a gay couple who has a surrogate and trying to prevent them from getting the baby. And so that's one example of ties into the 14th Amendment. But it's like they're going to do the gay people this year, but next year, who's next? What people are undesirable to be parents next?
Oh,
Donna?
I think that I'm looking at it from an aerial view. Okay. All of these things These people literally use our tax dollars. Our tax dollars pay their salaries so they can harass us
Yeah.
and steal our peace, reduce our economic capacities to take our jobs. And then they figure out ways to only have people, have the votes of people. The only votes that are counting are the folks who support what they're doing, because they don't think it's going to ultimately. And that's why I caution people, if you are, caution people all the time. I tell them, if you're using your vote to do things that you think are going to harm others, you are basically voting for harmful people.
Right.
Who ultimately will not stop at just harming the vulnerable. They will weaken you. You are weakening yourself by voting against the interests of the more vulnerable, and which means eventually you're the only meal that's left. Right? So they said, how do they bite the hand that feeds them? Well, they said, well, you've been feeding them hands.
Yeah.
Right? And we heard Shahid Bolson say that last year, and it never left my mind. These things are literally, when I say things, these governmental entities and despots and strongmen and would-be monarchs, they are literally reforming our government so that they can bring us just that. And watching people who are going to be eaten by this monster vote for these people blows my mind. And I know, I heard Maria say earlier in the show, we can't just talk about it. We have to do something about it. Well, I did, right? I organized my entire town. I did. And we were holding the power. We were called and consulted with when the city wanted to do things. We were asked at least once, not to protest because it would upset the wealthy people in West Shore and Bay Shore.
Well,
I got a call from the mayor, right? Everybody want to talk about that. So we had consolidated some degree of power because all politics is local. And if you want to prove your mettle as a national organizer, you're supposed to organize. I tell people all the time, I want to be like you. I say, okay, organize the mile around your house. So we did Ybor City, and we shut down Ybor City, and we owned Ybor City. And then we started to expand outward. But it took us years of just organizing in Ybor City where I lived, like 2 blocks and a half from my house, to actually be able to go to Cyrus Green down the park on Hillsborough, right? And Martin Luther King. And so organizing is a slow, long process. And we never really made it in the East Tampa, right? Because we started with students.
right.
And so when we went to Plant City and we went to East Tampa, the Latin communities up there told us that they didn't like Black Lives Matter, but they would love to have 3 backpacks for their children. Okay? And when we went to the Black communities in St. Pete, they said all lives matter because they haven't had a political education. And so that's the infrastructure that we tried to build BLM on. So when you start talking about doing something, if you're a middle-class educated person with some economic privilege, then it seems like a simple thing. But when you start talking to people who have been beaten to a pulp by these systems, they will not respond the way you expect them to. And let me just dip into that. It's 9:44. Give me 1 minute to do this. When I talk to people in St. Louis, where I am right now, 150 years ago, the Henry Shaw, some other folks were going to donate a lot of land. He was a slave owner, and he did a couple other things, but he had a lot of land. So he created this botanical garden, and then he wanted to do a large park. So when they went to donate this land, they wanted to create this promenade, and they wanted the promenade to be for the Model Ts, the cars that had come out, right? Because it was like cars. So it wasn't Henry Shaw because he would have lived long before that. So it was someone else who donated this land. Just got that. Well, they said, we only want the wealthy to be on this promenade. It's for us. It's not for them. So it was mostly the people in the county with their estates and their large houses, a lot of land out there. So they said, we don't want those people. This is only supposed to be, we don't want freed slaves and their ilk on this promenade. So they said, well, you can have the park then. We're going to break off. The county broke off from the city of St. Louis. So there's 3 St. Louis. There's a county, there's East St. Louis, which is across the bridge and behind the arch in Illinois. And then there is St. Louis City, which you also hear about on the news with all the crime. Well, so basically there was a massive divestment from the city of St. Louis by the folks in the county where all of the money and the massive tax base is. So they divested, the schools crumbled essentially. It took a few generations for that to happen. It wasn't an instant process. And in 1904, at the time of the World's Fair, St. Louis was still the center of everything in the United States, the gateway to the West, the center. Even now it's a 1 satellite hop. Colorado is too, but around the world. Well, the city has struggled ever since. So the vast majority of the population, 2014 numbers, which is the last time I had to use a map to organize in St. Louis, 2014, there were 1.2 million, 700,000 people in the county. 700,000 people in the county. And right now, the city has been reduced to 300,000 people. There's only 300,000 people in the city of St. Louis, and it was built for 3.2 million. Okay. When you see the museums and the parks, this city was built for a lot of people, and no one is here. So when you talk to the people in St. Louis, when they've been dragging that albatross of history and its vestiges along for generations. When you talk to them, it's been so long since there's been basic good education, civics, government, math, reading classes in so many of these schools and even the universities. It is very difficult to have a conversation with the average person. Now, people are going to call me, blow up my spot on this. I don't care. I have talked to 500 people since I came here, and we barely have 20 people in this program. So that's the breach between what we want to do and what has deliberately been created, what the infrastructure has deliberately done to people so that it makes it near to, but not impossible, but next to impossible to actually show these folks, give them the hope and the information that they need, because most of them are working 3 jobs anyway.
Right. Let's talk to Dave in Tampa. Hi, Dave.
Hey, good morning. I've been listening to you, and I agree with what you say about what are we going to do about it. We've identified the problems, and it's kind of one big problem. And I think the overall answer is you've got to disrupt the way we do elections. The solution to the problem is as simple as electing people who will vote to impose the solutions that help us all. That doesn't happen because our politics are dysfunctional with money. Money calls the tune. People don't. And the reason that happens is because money controls the flow of information. So people perceive their realities in ways where they don't recognize common issues across different interest groups. That's what you have to get at. And I think you can leverage technology to do that. But you have to become creative. I don't think marching in the street and the things that worked 50 years ago with mass media are no longer applicable. You've got to come up with entirely new models to penetrate the paradigm that we use now for elections, which is spend a lot of money, advertise to people, pump them full of BS, and try to polarize the electorate rather than finding where the consensus lies and having people vote more in sort of almost like a parliamentarian system where you've got groups coming together and coalescing to vote rather than voting red-blue.
Right.
And that's an information problem.
Those are some good thoughts, Dave, and they're giving me ideas. I'm gonna sit on there and incubate on that. But thank you for calling.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jack in Dover. Hi, Jack.
Good morning, Donna. Good morning, Liz. Thank you for taking my call.
Don't forget Maria.
Oh, hey, Maria. Good morning.
Hey.
So, yeah, I was listening to, I think, 89.7, which is also part of your little radio group there. And this morning they were talking about these people in China that there's like a vending machine in this park, and then drones come from McDonald's and they drop off their order. And I'm thinking, with all the lagoons and the gated communities that we have, if they started putting in, these little vending machines and had Walmart delivering their groceries and stuff, I don't feel like it's going to take away jobs from people. I think that it's going to maybe help, get rid of traffic in certain areas and stuff, which we really need right now. So that's my one thought as far as AI. And then the second thought that I have is, I remember back, and this is, because I'm so old, I always have to go back to, when I was actually working, which was, in the 1990s when there was a popular program for grade school kids. It was called Dragon. And the kids could highlight something like Campbell's soup, or they could highlight a word that they wanted to learn something about. And Dragon would bring up all these different articles, and it would give them something, that they could use as research material. And it was really popular. And I think these kids are the ones that have grown up thinking that AI is the future. But it's also the excitement of, a 9-year-old or an 8-year-old child. And so when I see Bezos and all these guys and the things that they're doing, I think of one thing, and that's at Deaconess Hospital, there was a machine that did 1,000 different scientific studies on one drop of blood, and they used it to help diagnose problems. And that's where Dragon started to become, popular with the health community in St. Louis. But Dragon or AI can't take that drop of blood. So computers don't really think. They don't really create. All
They do not.
do is research information that's already been printed or has been figured out by a human. So I don't see where AI can really threaten human beings because they don't bleed. They can't become the patient themselves. But there are, of course, tech people that have to keep them operating. So that's my 2 cents for this morning. I'm not sure if you all agree or disagree, but I just wanted to kind of throw that out there.
Thanks so much for calling, Jack.
You're-
All right, Marie in Largo. Hi, Marie.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I think either way, change is coming and we can't fight it. We do have to protect ourselves. I think it's the same argument when cars were introduced and people were against that moving forward. I mean, we have to be progressive either way. But there's got to be some common sense with all of it. And, we have to stand up and fight for that because they're obviously not going to give it to us without a fight, the safety precautions that go around it. And if anybody possibly can watch the movie WALL-E, you're going to see what happens when you let everything just take over. And what happens to the human being physically is already been shown just by having a remote for your TV. That little remote has caused so many health issues when people stopped having to get up and go to their TV to change the channel. So every little change comes with responsibility. But if you can get your viewers to watch the movie WALL-E, I'm telling you, it is spot on for where we're headed if we're not careful.
All right. Well, thanks so much for planting that seed, Marie.
I think about what Donna mentioned about the University of Central Florida and this audience of young people who have studied the humanities and communication, right? This is a creative group of people, right? AI doesn't replace who we are as sentient beings, right? It doesn't replace our creativity, our imaginations, and things like that. My question becomes, not about like who's going to get up and change the television. Perhaps we shouldn't even have a television, right? But what are we fostering in, because at the same time that we're talking about this whole thing, we're also talking about the dismantling of public education and higher education, right?
Right.
So then what are we replacing that with, right? And then you also have the same group of people, getting in their turning points feelings, talking about have more children than you can afford. What are we doing with all of these folks?
Right. And
What's happening? Right? Like, it's really, really clear that certain things are going to be automated. I get that. Right. And I think that there is something to the Industrial Revolution when people feel such hubris that they forget about humanity. Right. I think it falls the same way the last Industrial Revolution fell. Mm-hmm. Right. But what happens? What are we doing? Right? Like, I really need people to start thinking about what's next for them, because growing your own food and knitting your own sweaters can take us but so far.
Right.
What are we doing as a collective?
Right. Exactly. I don't know if y'all saw this, but Dr. Oz of Dr. Oz fame says Americans are underbabied. And he said you have to get moms healthy enough to do the most creative thing the universe knows, which is making babies. If that doesn't make you want to vomit, I don't know.
But we can't afford them. These are the same people that are telling us that we have to pay for our own child care. Right. And between gas and child care, what's the point of going to work?
You can't.
Slavery.
Right.
Slavery.
It's slavery. Yeah. Number one, the United States does not have a mandatory program in place for maternal leave after you have the baby. They make it hard for working mothers with infants to have access to places where they can either feed their babies or breast pump. This is another place where America falls short. The United States of America, not all of America. United States falls short is because in Europe there's leave for nobody has to worry about their job. They go on leave, they stay gone 6 months, and they come back and they start working again. I mean, some countries give like a huge like hope chest full of stuff for the baby. Once you take the stuff out of the chest, then you can use it as a crib. I mean, it's like the United States.
But we also have to talk about who they want to have babies, right? Because they're genociding all over the globe.
Yes, they want white people to have babies. They're not talking to everybody. They want the white people, which is where all these trad wives are coming in.
Oh, that's another show.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we did that one already, right? We didn't.
We did.
Every show is worthy of an update.
Yeah, I think it's time for us to have one.
Yeah, because you got Erica Kirk out there, stumping all over the place, and she while Charlie was still alive, you never heard of her because she was like supposedly a trad wife, but turns out she's not. And so why are we even entertaining this woman anymore? Why is she even newsworthy anymore? So we should go back and do a big update on some of our previous shows. And if our listeners have any updates they want us to do in particular, send us an email and we'll put it in the hopper. Closing thoughts, ladies.
I think that folks who want us to make a change, I hear that we've got to do something. I also agree that marching is no longer a thing, right? So, no king, screw you guys. And for making people believe that that's a thing. Still, after what you saw happen to BLM, right? Nothing. Like it's almost worse than it was before. We're very close to having more Black men being murdered by the police. But I put in, just FYI, today I'll find out if they bite. I put in a proposal, an RFP, to the Analyst Institute, who funds for their members, which I am, through my company that I own. I asked them to help us study voter registration programs legally combined with civic engagement.
Okay, I got to cut you off, Donna, because
Okay. Next week.
Yeah.
Next
All right.
week. Mhm.
Next week. Thank you. Listen to
Bye.
us next Thursday.